Hi everyone. If you are listening to this, that means that for some reason you had to miss class. Either you have COVID or COVID exposure. So I just wanted to say that I hope you feel better soon and that you don't get too far behind in any of your classes. If there's anything I can do to help you during this time, please let me know. And now to start, this here obviously is the Canvas page, and I know some students were having trouble finding the lab background, so I thought I would just walk you guys through it right now just to be sure we're all on the same page. So you hit this button here, Modules, and it should take you to a page with all of the assignments for this class. And we scroll down a bit past all of the TA sections, and we see here the enzyme activity lab background. These are the backgrounds you need to print and bring with you to lab when you have in-person labs, but you still need to print this and have it with you for online labs as well. So if you download it here, you can kind of see some of the things. So if you haven't already read through this and completed the activities, then you should stop the video right now and do this, because your very first step should be to do this lab background every single lab, whether you're online or in person. And you can see here how the background has some relevant information about enzyme activity that is going to be important for you to know as we go into this lab, so that the concepts that we talk about actually make a bit of sense and you kind of know where we're coming from on this. So this starts with a background here, kind of explaining what enzymes do, what they are, explains a bit about activation energy and why enzymes are useful. And then it moves into things like active sites and such things, the actual mechanics of how these enzymes work. There's various environmental effects that can play a role in how enzymes work, like temperature, pH, that kind of thing, because there is an ideal rate for each condition for enzymes. And then it goes into talking more about the enzyme that causes the brown appearance on bruised fruits and vegetables, called catecholase, which is found naturally in these fruits and vegetables. And it talks a bit more about all this. I'm just kind of glancing over this because this isn't really part of what I talk to you about. This is part stuff that you are responsible for knowing before we start the lab. And also, these are the questions that I refer to that you need to have answered before you listen to my lecture. So, again, if you don't already have this done, go ahead and pause this video, go find this background, read it, do the questions, and then come back to this video. And here is the data collection sheet that you will use later on. So, again, this is why you need to have it printed off so you can actually write on this. So this is the lecture that I'll be giving in class to the in-person students. So some of it's relevant to you, some of it's not, but I'll just kind of glance over the parts that don't really matter for you as much. Basically, to use the lab computers is the first thing we talk about. And since the lab computers are Macs, they have this little rocket ship looking thing, which is called the launch pad. So students log in with the password studentxx, and the XX is the section number, so either 21 or 50, depending on which section you're in. We drag down each one of these from the Launchpad, the Word, Excel, and Logger Pro, and that's how we use the software in NAB to collect this data. So what we'll be doing in person in NAB is collecting and displaying the data, determining how several conditions affect enzyme activity, and also writing out a lab summary and uploading it to Canvas. So, again, the lab we're doing today is looking at the question, why do some fruits and vegetables turn brown faster than others? So here is just a picture of the bins we use with all of the equipment that we'll need. In lab, am preparing a potato solution, which is basically just some deionized water and potato. that I blend up and then run through a coffee filter so you get this nice extract that you can use to test the effects of catechol and catecholase. We have 3 different salinities from 0% salt to 10% salt to 25% salt, and also have 3 different pHs that we'll be testing from pH 3 to 8 to 11. We also look at how temperature affects enzyme activity. So we've got a couple of hot water baths and also a cold water bath of ice water. And then we also have room temperature one where we just use tap water. As always, I remind you all that if you're using very hot things like the hot water bath, to always use tongs because the tubes get hotter than you think they will, and we don't want anyone getting hurt over the course of the semester. Take it from someone who has made this mistake before. There is very few worse feelings than getting to the end of an experiment and then realizing you don't really know which tube is which, and then having to start all over from the beginning because you don't know what data conditions were used for your results. So always get in the habit of the first thing you do being labeling your tubes right away. We will add one of the various conditions, either the temperature or salinity or pH difference, to the potato sample and let it sit 10 minutes, and then add catechol. The enzyme catecholase is already in the sample from the potato puree. We then calibrate the colorimeter and take various readings. There is a video of this on Canvas that is optional. You can watch it if you're curious to know how this works, but since you don't actually have to use it for this online lab, you don't have to if you don't want to. This little tube here is called a cuvette, and you might be able to see it's a little hard, but 2 of the sides are textured and have some ribs on them, and then 2 are completely clear plastic. The reason for this is that the colorimeter is really sensitive, so if you even get a single fingerprint on one of the clear sides, it will mess with your data results reading. So you need to make sure you only handle it from the textured side, not the clearer side. Once your colorimeter is calibrated and you have a sample in the cuvette and in the machine, you record the percent transmittance on your lab background sheet, which is this here in the lower corner. This one is showing a transmittance percent of 38.72%. This will be shown to you in the video Dr. Shaw made of this lab demonstration, so you just need to record the data. And then this is more relevant instructions for the people in a lab of how to properly clean up all of the test tubes and make sure we return the lab back to the way we found it at the beginning of class. So writing out the hypotheses, remember that a hypothesis is a causal explanation, which means that the hypothesis needs to be testable, but it does not have to be supported. So for an example, one hypothesis could be enzymes exposed to pH 11 have lower activity because bases denature enzymes. This might be a true statement, it might be a false statement. You can gather data and test this statement and see if it's correct or not. So this is a good hypothesis because it is a causal explanation, it is specific and testable, and then once we gather data, we can see whether it's right or not. So just to reiterate, your hypothesis needs to be specific and testable, but it's okay if it ends up being wrong in the end after you collect the data. That's how science works. You make your best guess and then correct it once you find out that the data says that it's either supported or not supported. For this lab, you need to write a hypothesis for each of the 3 conditions being tested. That includes salinity, temperature, and pH. These need to be included in your lab summary, so please make sure you put some thought and effort into this whenever you're writing up your hypotheses. What do you think the pH will do? What do you think the heat or cold will do? And what do you think the salinity differences will do to the enzyme activity? Some tips are to review the How to Write a Lab Summary document on the lab canvas, and also to look at the rubric before you begin writing. I literally go through the rubric and check off yes or no and grade that way based on how closely you follow the instructions. So there's things like, is this the right word limit? Did they include the right number of hypotheses? Are the hypotheses specific and testable? That kind of thing. So I go through and check off whether or not you follow these instructions. So the closer you are to the rubric, the more likely you are to get a better grade. And so for the people meeting in person, the lab summary is due by the end of lab, but you guys have until September 11th, which is a Friday, at noon, which is 12 p.m. noon, to turn this in. So you'll be able to turn it in as early as that Monday, the 7th, but it has to be turned in by September 11th at noon. That's all I have for you this time. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know and I can try to help you. But again, please try to be safe and well. Bye.